Admin, this should be the way to the rest of this supposed vault. Whoa, this place is a lot bigger than I thought. Wait a sec, where does this lead? Wait, into the members only area? So this is how they get in here. And this one leads to the other room. What the fuck? This is a lab. Like an actual fucking lab. It's probably just for show.
Research notes. DeLeon syndrome. DeLeon syndrome is a rare debilitating mutation. Spontaneous regeneration arrests skeletal, muscular, and dermal developments after puberty, while internal organs continue to age at an accelerated rate. This results in increasing discomfort over time due to misalignment of connective tissue, and inevitably leads to numerous life-threatening corollary conditions. When I began my research, life expectancy of a person with this mutation was a little over 40 years. The average is now in the mid-50s due to recent advances in treatment, but a true cure remains elusive. Treatment regimen. Cardiopulmonary dysfunction in stages 1 and 2 can be effectively treated with conventional measures and/or implants. Early detection is key, as initial symptoms are typically mild and appear at much younger ages than would be expected in the general population. By late stage 3, the frequency and severity of cardiac and respiratory events escalate to untreatable levels, resulting in death. Inflammation of connective tissue can be minimized with NSAIDs in stage 1 and most stage 2 cases, although kidney and liver function must be closely monitored. In stage 3 and some stage 2 cases, pain management with Med-X becomes preferable.
Was that why Malibu was asking for medics?
Macular degeneration in stage 2 patients can be reversed with genetically modified cannabinoids, and can be arrested or reduced even in severe stage 3 cases. Unfortunately, specimens which produce the most effective compounds display a proportional increase in hallucinogenic properties. Decoupling the two effects has proven more difficult than anticipated.
Oh no, that's why one of them was so high.
Gender connection. Lily has contributed much to the research in the few years since she and Lauren arrived. I don't know how long I spent seeking a genetic explanation for the higher incidence of DeLeon syndrome in women, but it's a dead end. Lily's simple but brilliant hypothesis, rapidly increasing testosterone and aggression without corresponding increases in physical strength, make it less likely for DeLeon males to survive adolescence. She has even speculated that females with the condition have a competitive advantage, although I suspect that may just be a tongue-in-cheek attempt to keep the patient's spirits up. Ghoul connection. I believe there is some validity to Larry's conjecture that DeLeon syndrome is related to the so-called Ghoul mutation. Both conditions cause regeneration in one set of anatomical processes, while others atrophy or decay. Genetic markers seem to confirm this hypothesis, but the connection has not yielded any viable treatment options to date. Ghoul symptom onset. Duke, as requested, I documented everything. I remember about the onset of my symptoms. You may regret telling me to omit nothing. Larry. In early October 2077, my company was raided by federal agents. Our relationship with censors and politicians was always adversarial, so I thought little of it, until I learned the charge this time was capital treason. Vault L was legal, but people were in a panic about China, Vault Tech was overbooked, and the circus trial would keep everyone's minds off the real issues. The sweeping nature of the Emergency Powers Act had finally given the government the unconstitutional authority to shut down lollipops permanently and do away with yours truly. The Saturday before the trial was to begin, I was being transferred to a holding facility close to the federal court in D.C. Every Puritan and hypocrite on Capitol Hill was getting ready to posture for the holo cameras to prevent a patriotic vigilante from prematurely spoiling their fun. My hosts were kind enough to equip me with ballistic armor from head to toe. This saved my life when the Chinese attacked. The armored vehicle was tossed like a die by a drunken gambler. When I came to, I was weak and sick. Exposed skin was dead and peeling. The vehicle was torn open. From the median strip where it landed, I could see structure fires which must have burned for days, but were now nearly extinguished. I drew the obvious conclusion. Night came and passed, but although I was battered and nauseous, I didn't seem to be getting worse. I eventually realized my nausea was due to the right state of my escort, a U.S. Marshal who had apparently been killed on impact. I was elated to discover the key to my shackles on the person of my erstwhile captor. I was arriving late to the looting party, but the taxpayers had provided me with a full set of exorbitantly expensive body armor and the Marshal's riot shotgun. Better yet, they had transported me across the country to within walking distance of Vault L. And I didn't have any form of radiation sickness I ever heard of, because I was getting stronger as time passed. Vault L had sealed as a crime scene, but I gained access using some undocumented features of the security system. When I stripped for a decontamination shower, I lost any delusion that I had injuries which would heal normally. By that time, about 3 weeks after initial exposure, my condition was nearly what it is today. It was disconcerting, but I focused on learning to operate the Vault's life support systems, since it appeared my condition would allow ample time to die of suffocation or thirst if I did not. It was over a year before I ventured back outside, and I kept subsequent reconnaissance brief and infrequent. Most survivors were hostile, but not all. I learned that my condition was not unique, and many of those afflicted were deranged, little more than animals. Of course, from my perspective, so were many of the unaffected. After a few decades, a tribal level of organization was re-established in some areas, ripe for business, and my area of interest proved to be more lucrative than ever. Of course, I couldn't be the public face of the company anymore, but I've always had a knack for hiring talented, reliable people. Anyway, I'm far beyond the part of which you were interested. I hope it helps.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. Everything points to a Chinese invasion just before the bombs fell here in D.C., and I know the government hated Larry.
Historical survey of delay on frequency. Duke, this is painful, and more importantly, it's purely anecdotal evidence, but here you go. Larry. The Upstairs Club reopened around 2090, although it wasn't a club per se, just a trading post in a gutted shell. I had one manager and one entertainer. We'd go days without seeing another soul. I spent a lot of time restoring the building. By 2104, we had enough traffic to run 2 shifts, but it still wasn't a statistically valid sample. I met my first DeLeon victim in 2131. She claimed to be 26, but looked 10 years younger. It had been 50 years since age of consent mattered, so I had no idea why she would lie. Nor did I particularly care. She wanted the job, and like a mink. She worked for me for 12 years. She always complained about headaches, and toward the end about chest pain. I thought it was an excuse to sample every Johnny's homebrew chems. I didn't stop her, because when she got really high, she'd even a ghoul.
You didn't fucking care that it looked like pedophilia? Seriously, Larry?
She died in 2143, just collapsed and stopped breathing. I thought maybe she'd been poisoned by a jealous mark, and I was going to kill the son of a butch who was responsible. I got the closest thing I could find to a doctor to do the closest thing he could manage to an autopsy. Even a layman could see why she'd been in pain. Her insides didn't fit right, and the doctor said she had a host of ailments usually only found in the elderly. By 2143, we'd all seen a lot of weird shit, and it only took me a couple of minutes to realize it was almost a mirror image of my own condition. Maybe a different mutation of the same gene, but that's your department, not mine. After some deliberation, I decided not to kill the son of a who was responsible. Me.
He was responsible because he didn't fucking get her any medical help before she died. He just kept her hopped up on chems. I mean, at least he recognizes that was wrong.
4 years later, I met another one. Before you assume it was getting more common, realize I had built a reputation for providing fair, professional management, which started to attract experienced courtesans from all over the wasteland. Anyway, this time I recognized it for what it was. The doctor came back and confirmed it. He said there was no reason she couldn't work, but I had him keep a close eye on her, manage her pain more responsibly, identify things that made the symptoms worse, you know the drill. Since then, I'd say on average, I meet a new DeLeon woman every 10 years or so. That's been pretty consistent for the last 100 years. One thing has changed: medical knowledge. That first doctor couldn't tell a gene sequencer from a giant electronic dildo. I can't tell you how grateful I am to finally have someone with the expertise to use the advanced medical equipment that sat idle in Vault L all that time.
I mean, there is medical equipment here, maybe? Maybe it's real? I don't know. I need to look more into this.
Patient files. Lily Chen. Female, 35. Diagnosis: no physiological issues. Lily is a doctor by any meaningful definition of the term, but she won't use the title. I explained there hasn't been an accreditation board in 200 years, even offered to recommend her for an internship with Preston or Church to make it official. Says she doesn't want to be away from the research that long. I suspect it's actually Lauren she doesn't want to be away from, but I guess I shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth. Brittany MacLeod. Female, 62. Diagnosis: advanced DeLeon syndrome. Numerous corollary effects including cardiac lesions and cicatrix, pulmonary sclerosis, liver cirrhosis, cranial neuralgia, and mild senility. Prognosis: in 2272, I gave Brittany 6 months to live. I wish I could take credit, but sometimes I think she's just having too much fun to die. At this point, there's no reason to ask her to stop working. She'd probably ignore me anyway. Duke Mauser. Male, none of your business. Come on, Haley. You didn't think it would be that easy, did you? Haley Ryan. Female, 51. Diagnosis: DeLeon syndrome. Corollary cardiac lesions and cranial neuralgia. Prognosis: 5 years. Maybe more if the latest treatment regimen is effective. Recommend that she stop entertaining, work in the lab, as much for the research as her health. She refused, drops in a couple times a week to spend a few hours tweaking the gene sequencer, then goes back to the Johnnies. Says inspiration comes in spurts. Larry and his double entendre, like a contagious disease. Lawrence Slater. Male, 247. Diagnosis: Ghoul mutation. Prognosis: unknown. Crude humor and lecherous behavior notwithstanding, Larry is always happy to provide tissue samples or suffer other procedural indignities, not to mention financing the research. Sadly, none of that has gotten us much closer to the exact cause of either mutation. 20 years ago we talked about a cure, but I'm starting to think a treatment for the worst symptoms will be the best we can achieve. Lauren Spiaggia. Female, 35. Diagnosis: DeLeon syndrome. Corollary effects mild so far. Prognosis: responding well to latest treatment. Short-term positive, but if she doesn't cut back on the alcohol and unprescribed chems, in a few years her liver will look like Brittany's. Larry told her she doesn't have to work in the members-only area if she finds it stressful, but she insists it's the only way she can contribute equally. As if bringing Lily with her wasn't contribution enough. They don't talk much about their past, but I gather they grew up together, faced some rather horrific ordeals, and eventually arrived at this facility guided only by vague rumors. Quite a remarkable pair.
I gotta talk to them.
I'm sure your friends are nice, Mom, but you know I remarried. You came to the wedding, remember?
It wasn't very long ago. I think I remember.
It's okay, Mom. I know you'll never forget the kids. Shirley's doing great, and Kel passed her exams. They made her a scribe.
Cool.
Yeah, I just don't know if I can convince her to use what little leave she gets to keep seeing Dr. Mauser.
I sure hope so.
Anyway, are you hungry? I tried a new Meyerlurk recipe, and I want to see what you think.
Neat. What else you got?
Well, I was going to surprise you, but for dessert, I found some of those little cakes you like.
Yeah, awesome.
Wait, she's your mom? And she has grandchildren in the Brotherhood?
I don't mean to be rude, but I don't get to visit as often as I like, so if you'll excuse me.
Okay, yeah, go spend some time with your mom.
I'm Dr. Mauser, but we're all on a first-name basis around here, so call me Duke.
Duke Mauser? Seriously?
Yeah. My parents were mercs. They let me study medicine because every unit needs a medic, right? We never heard of DeLeon syndrome. They just thought I was a late bloomer until I was, 30.
You're telling me you have it? You don't look that young. I need information. What's going on down here?
Medical research. I don't always like how we get our funding, but at least we get it.
Sex work seems like an odd way to fund this research, don't you think?
Don't get me wrong, Larry's a great guy, but when your only tool's a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Wait, so if you really have De Leon syndrome, why aren't you out there doing sex work too?
Do I look like gigolo material?
Are you insecure or just a hypocrite?
You got a lot of nerve. Look, if you find any women who will pay for this, feel free to send them down. Happy?
Whatever. The timeout room is different. Is it really just another fantasy package?
Of course it is. Some sick fucks enjoy bullying defenseless girls, but if they get too rough, the security system kicks in.
And the girls play along?
Yeah. They're in control, but the Johnny doesn't know it. The girls think it's funny. Half the time, the guy can't even get it up in the end.
Maybe because some people are repulsed by the idea that you have a pedophile ring, huh?
I have a genome simulation running, so make it quick.
If this research is real, is there any way I can help?
No offense, but knowing how to patch a gunshot wound does not qualify you for molecular genetics.
I mean, DNA is just an organic computer program. Debug it.
Sure. 3 billion lines of massively recursive spaghetti code. And even if you debug it, how do you deploy a patch to every cell?
Machine code, organic code, doesn't matter. To patch every cell, use a virus.
It's not that easy to swap payloads in an organic virus, but it's theoretically possible. In fact, it may have been done 200 years ago. Larry got most of this gear from Vault-Tec. Surplus, stolen, doesn't matter. But not all of the file systems were factory reset. There were vague references to a designer virus you could tailor to rewrite DNA however you wanted. What I wouldn't give for a sample of that.
Have you tried 5P15.33?
I stand corrected. Unfortunately, it looks like a dead end. The simulations predict therapy in that area will result in terminal cancer, or worse.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Speaking of which, the sensor modules in Synthesizer D are on the fritz. If you run across any, we could use them.
I think I have some on me. Here you go.
We'll take all the help we can get. What do you have?
Oh, sorry. I thought I had a sensor module on me.
Okay, if you have any luck, let me know.
I will. Thanks for the information.
Glad to help. Now, if you don't mind, I need to get back to work.
All right. Good night. Sorry for waking you up. Lily, right?
What do you need?
If everybody else here has De Leon syndrome, what are you doing here?
My story is my business.
Can I try to think of an idea to help the research?
You're the intellectual type, eh?
Duke thinks 5P15.33 is a dead end. I think he might be wrong. Keep looking.
Quite right. Perhaps you're not as stupid as you seem.
Yeah, alright.
Bye!
Wait a sec. So, the girls can actually get out of their cells. This is a door. Okay. I mean, I guess if there's a built-in mechanism to get them out of their cells, I have to admit that I was at least somewhat wrong. But still, I don't like this. They look like children, and selling that fantasy is wrong. Especially if you're attracting customers that think it's pedophilia. An old office. Wait, this terminal still works.
Vault L. Vault L Training Manual. 7/4/2176. The Board of Directors would be delighted to hear that after 100 years I have finally given consideration to a successful plan. My lifespan has been greatly extended by my mutation, but I presume it is still finite. Most of what an interim CEO needs to know is in the Vault Operations Manual. A few important points that are not. 1. The reactor room is sealed due to elevated radiation levels. This is not a cause for alarm, merely a residual effect of clumsy maintenance in the early years when I was learning to operate the vault alone. Should the need arise to access the reactor when I am not available, use appropriate protective measures. 2. Vault L was designed to house 50 people. Only a fraction of that capacity is being used, so I have shut down and sealed unused sections to conserve power. 3. Before the war, I knew a few entertainers who never seemed to age. Since the war, I have met many for whom that condition is both literal and painful. To my shame, it took me a decade to recognize that the perpetual youth of the first De Leon syndrome victim I hired was unnatural. The appearance of a co-ed combined with the experience of an older woman was so advantageous I ignored the warning signs until it was too late. I make no apologies for continuing to employ De Leon sufferers as entertainers. Manual labor and combat require physical prowess they lack. Entertainment does not. And delighting the customer's libido is still my number 2 priority. My top priority, the pursuit of a cure, is a debt to her memory.
Larry, I appreciate what you've done for sex positivity, but you're a fucking scumbag. And I think when she died, you realized that. I guess it's good that you're dedicating the rest of your life to finding a cure, but profiting off this shit is disgusting.
Wardromatic XK. The ultimate of theatrical wardrobe solutions. The Wardromatic XK puts virtually unlimited stage clothes at your fingertips in the floor space of a typical vending machine. Choose from thousands of period and contemporary templates, or let your costume designers create their own. Advanced miniaturized robotics and recyclable planet-friendly fibers and dyes deliver the right look on time, every time. 3/17/2076. Security System. Larry, thanks again for choosing Selective Force Applications for your automated security needs. Your requirements are unusual, but nothing our behavioral anomaly detection (TM) technology can't handle. The Assured Enforcement (TM) module negates countermeasures like gas masks and EMP shielding, yet the effects are non-lethal over 90% of the time. I still recommend employee verification implants as a backup to biometric identification. Let me buy you a drink sometime so we can discuss it further. Amanda Dickinson, Regional Sales Manager. Transcripts, Stony. 2075-07-05 to Stony. Stoney, the request I'm about to make pains me deeply. No one could have sidestepped the best efforts of censors and legislators to shut us down more deftly than you have done. However, this business with China is going to hit the fan, and soon. The worst-case scenario is inevitable, and I must prepare. Congress and the Supreme Court were worthy adversaries, and I always ran a squeaky clean operation so our subversive and anti-American enterprise was not done in by a technicality. However, I am now planning a project off the ledger, so to speak. I cannot in good conscience require my attorney to participate. If you decline, as would be wise, I will accept your resignation with deepest sorrow and approve a severance package that will provide you income far exceeding comfortable in perpetuity. Regards and apologies, Larry. 2075-07-05 to Larry. Jesus, Larry, we've been working together 20 years. Whatever it is, I'm in. But if this is about being blacklisted by Vault-Tec, consider just buying the bastards out. I've seen their balance sheet. If we leverage our cash reserves, we can hit them with a $200 billion hostile takeover bid. 2075-07-06 to Stoney. I considered your suggestion, Stoney, but the SEC would strike down our bid. We've on the boots of many powerful people, and they intend to have their revenge. We could appeal, of course, but the issue would still be in the courts on Judgment Day. I propose an alternative solution. I will acquire their blueprints, appropriate their materials, and build my own vault. Big, so we can take as many of our own people as possible. Dancers, models, film stars, staff, doesn't matter as long as they're loyal and reliable. A few techies, of course. Let the rest be on my conscience, since I allegedly don't have one.
He was going to save every member of his company?
2075-09-21 to Larry. We're in the wrong business, Larry. Make a patriotic product and you only get audited every 3 years by your brother-in-law. Doing side deals with Vault-Tec subcontractors is like taking candy from a baby. One hitch. If we transport some of the stuff very far, people will notice. I've made sure everything is technically legal, but proving it in court would be a PR nightmare. David versus Goliath plays to the crowd a lot better than Goliath versus Mega Goliath. We need to build someplace where there's a dense concentration of legitimate vaults to keep it discreet. 2076-01-01 to Stoney. I'm on site at the DC Club. It's a dive compared to the ones in Hollywood and Atlanta. The manager almost soiled his trousers when he learned the CEO would be ringing in the new year at his B-list facility. Expansion and remodeling is a completely plausible explanation for new construction. Make it happen. P.S. Let your staff handle the antitrust case. Vault L is our top priority, and I want you on it full time.
Oh wait, Vault L only fits 50 people. Only the top 50 would be able to get in here. I guess it's a nice but ultimately meaningless gesture.
2077-10-01 to Larry. Larry, can't reach you by phone. Hope you're near a terminal. Feds are here, asking about the DC project. They have a warrant, and if Matt stalls them any longer, they're likely to start shooting people. Know a good lawyer?
Damn, sorry, Stoney.
Lollipops, personal. Transcripts, Mo. 9/2067. Seriously? Say it ain't so, Larry. You're really gonna let that alcoholic direct? I know she was a wreck in Ladies' Night, but if you want to get her off the screen, just fire her. Don't put her behind the camera. Well, it's your money, Mo. 12/2071. Pitch for the lineup. Mo, I enjoy the rough sex as much as the next fellow, but I've told you before, I'm not comfortable with gratuitous rape scenes in the movies. Are two really necessary? Larry. Yeah, the first one's just a flashback. I'll do it real tasteful, Frescocoy style, if it makes you happy. The second one's in prison where the perp's on the receiving end of some ironic payback. You ever questioned my decisions before, why now?
Mo was such a fucking asshole.
5/2075, moving on. Larry, it's been a blast, but it's time to move on. I'm starting my own production company so I can cater to my core audience. You and Fresca don't have to worry about me competing with your lovey-dovey stuff. No hard feelings, okay? Mo.
Does Larry not remember how unethical it is to depict rape? Doesn't statutory rape count?
Transcripts, Fresca. 12-2070, re Vault Tech hearing. Fresca, rest assured your job is not contingent on the hearing. I approve the script. Even if I considered it a mistake, I do not, and was inclined to hang you out to dry, I am not. It scored $650 million domestic, $2 billion international, and 7 pervies. That tops most directors' career totals. I look forward to your next pitch. Larry. Thanks, Larry. That means a lot. Pitch-wise, after this mess, I'm thinking public domain. Eligible bachelor searches for the perfect he shagged in the cloakroom at the costume ball. It's called Sphincterella. 9-2074, re 19th hole script. Tone down the sex and pitch it to the mainstream studios. You'll win an Oscar instead of a pervy. Larry. The sex is integral to the story, Larry. When murder is a plot point, you can show somebody's brains getting blown out. So it makes no sense for my protagonist to lose everything over a pair of batting eyelashes. I make this movie with lollipops, or I don't make it at all. Simple as that. If you're worried about tarnishing your reputation as the consummate pervert, you could always give me the executive producer credit.
I respect her creative integrity.
12-2076, re, open this when you're alone. Fresca, this is extremely sensitive. Tell no one. War, real war, is inevitable. I've built a vault to save as many as I can. Intelligent, reliable people. You're at the top of the list. Larry. You're scaring me, Larry. It's bad enough in the streets, and I don't talk to CEOs and politicians like you do. Look, I'm not cut out for repopulating the earth, and I couldn't spend the rest of my life in a hole in the ground. If it happens, I want to be at ground zero. But please, you're going to ask Bruni, right? Fresca.
Fresca must have cared about whoever Bruni is.
Remembering Fresca Coy. Adult Entertainment News, February 2077. The industry is still mourning the loss of renowned actress and director Fresca Coy, who was found dead in a Las Vegas hotel room from an apparent drug overdose last month. Lollipop's president Larry Slater lamented, "The void left by Fresca's passing cannot be filled. She was intelligent, innovative, and irreplaceable." Adult film legend Dom Atomic reminisced, "She was one of us. If the script says she banged a dude, she banged a dude. So when she was behind the camera, we gave 110%. I wouldn't have done that scene with Andy and Day Off for anybody else, but I'm glad I did, because I got a pervy for it." Dom wasn't alone. Vault Boy's Day Off won 7 Pervy Awards, including the first of Coy's 4 wins as Best Director. Confidants say Coy was unfazed by the disappointing rental numbers and lukewarm critical reception to her final film, 19th Hole, but was devastated by the vehement reaction among the femlib crowd. Longtime companion Brunhilde Van Dyke said, "It didn't make any sense. Here's a woman who made it to the top of a male-dominated field, whose work had universal appeal across boundaries of gender, race, and sexual orientation, who outsold the misogynistic crap they should have been b***ing about 10-1. She should have been their f***ing role model, but instead they crucified her as a gender traitor."
Oh, 19th Hole must have had a trans character. And that's why they called her a gender traitor. I wasn't aware there were that many transphobes before the war.
Transcripts, Bruni. 6-2077, book. Larry, I'm writing a book. People want to hear me talk about 2 things: the inside dirt on their favorite porn stars, and what happened to Fresca. If you're interested, Lollipop's Publishing gets dibs. I owe you that much, but I won't pull punches, even for you. B. 6-2077, re, Ghostwriter. Bruni, I am most definitely interested, and for me to censor anyone would be the height of hypocrisy. If you need a ghostwriter, I can recommend one. Very capable. Larry. I don't know, he made you sound like Dickens, except the one you wrote with the geek. That sounded like a cross between Dickens and Clark. Unreadable. I'm more the Spillane type. I just need a decent editor. I'll send you a few chapters, see what you think. 6-2077, Chapter 1, My name is Brunhilde. People assume Brunhilde van Dyke is a cheesy stage name. I'm a lesbian, and I'm built like a Valkyrie. It's not. My parents are Dutch and love Wagner. Lots of immigrants work in the biz. No Anglo-Saxon surname required. Farisa Chambo would be stuffing bags at Super Duper Mart if he wasn't stuffing actresses. INS didn't let Sasha in without legal help from lollipops. Melee? Don't let... Oh, what? Redacted for racism. Fool you. She's as American as baseball and apple pie. She jokes her ancestors were the only redacted for racism again. But she's still questioned about every food riot on her block. What other job would pay her this well? Don't get me started on Win. Women's independence now? Wake up, bitches. I'm a woman and I've been independent my whole life. Sure, I do the occasional hetero scene, femdom stuff. The guy never touches me. I touch him. Not gently, and not where he wants it, naturally. I did a few guys early in my career. On the pleasure scale, it was around a mammogram. Unpleasant, but not unbearable. My lack of enthusiasm was obvious on screen. These days, I stick with my strengths. The money's better when your performances don't suck. I appeared in the most offensive movie ever made. I'm okay with that, because I was good in it. Porn doesn't make someone a misogynist or a sex offender any more than Grognak makes them violent. Of course, Wynn isn't a big fan of him either. There's just no pleasing some people.
Ugh, lots of racism in there, and I guess Wynn was some kind of puritanical organization.
6/2077, Chapter 4, Taking the Plunger. If you haven't seen Mo Lester's The Lineup, here's the story. Double D plays a crooked cop who rapes a girl with her police baton. D and her clueless partner, played by my friend Dom Atomic, handle the investigation. The victim, played by Sasha, doesn't recognize D because she wore a mask. D convinces her to identify a lineup of sex offenders by touch. They all her, one after another, on the floor of the interrogation room. Pointless because Dom and Sasha finally figure out D is the rapist. Sasha thanks Dom by, yeah, you guessed it, D goes to prison. I play her cellmate and dispense some poetic justice. Hey, I told you it was the most offensive movie ever made.
Look, I get that non-consensual consent is a thing in erotica, but yeah, that sounds awful.
Mo gave me a mohawk and an eye patch and let me flex. I look f***ing terrifying. He had a dildo made to look like a police baton. It was rubber, but when D used it on Sasha, it looked brutal. I was supposed to use it on D. At the last minute, Mo hands me a filthy toilet plunger instead. I hand it back. D can't see what's going on. I have her locked up in a small package, sitting on her face and holding her as vertical. Mo says it's a prop, and licks it. He wouldn't use a fork if it wasn't autoclaved, so I figured the filth is painted on by the FX guys. But it's still a wooden plunger, not a rubber dildo. No way was I going to use it. By that time, D needs to come up for air. Mo's exasperated, but D looks it over and says it's okay. She takes me aside and tells me, "You know what Mo's fans want. Don't go easy on me. I'm going to cry and beg, but don't stop unless I tap out." We did the scene, and we were both nominated for Best Supporting Actress. She won. Believe me, she earned it.
Sounds like they were pushing something they weren't really comfortable with. Fuck Mo.
6/2077, Chapter 6, Imitation and Flattery. Ginger Rook is typecast as a catty, manipulative for good reason. She is one. I love watching her work. I copied her sneer. She loathes facials, but she knows why it's called the money shot. Her fans pay to see arrogance get humbled. At the end of Sphincterella, Chauncey, Tom Katz, the stepsisters. Per script, he came on Double D's magnificent and turned towards Ginger. Nobody knew he hadn't gotten laid the entire shoot. Just let it build while Prince Charming Don Atomic got the action. Ginger was expecting drizzle. She got Tropical Storm Tom. Her scowl is priceless. I copied that too. Actors copy from each other. Directors take inspiration. I knew two of the best. I didn't work with Fresca Coy much. She was a genius, but we were lovers. It made it awkward. I work with Mo Lester a lot. He's a genius. I can't stand him, but we make great hollows. Fresca considered Mo her mentor. She was almost embarrassed she beat him for Best Director in 70 and 71. When Mo came roaring back in 72 with The Lineup, Critics said he took inspiration from Fresca's success. Bullshit. The lineup is a flagrant copy of Sphincterella. The only difference? Fresca's erotic passion and sense of humor are replaced by Moe's misogynistic violence. In Fresca's Hollow, Dom searches for Sphincterella, and Moe's, Sasha searches for a rapist. Sphincterella and the rapist were both wearing masks. Dom f***s women who were at the ball. Sasha f***s the lineup. Both end up being the person they least suspect. In both Hollows, somebody walks in on the final money shot, and everyone has a good laugh before the credits roll. Took inspiration, my ass. Don't I worry that trash-talking Moe might be bad for my career? Hell no. He'd be if I said he's a caring, sensitive gentleman. He's not. He's a leering, sadistic tyrant. With Moe's fans, I just doubled his sales. Am I okay with that? Yes, I get residuals.
Hey, get your money, girl. Moe is such a scumbag. I appreciate that critique. He made that movie just to make it about rape.
6/2077, Chapter 8, That Scene. Andy Guinness is drop-dead gorgeous in drag. Fresca wanted him to look haggard and day off, so the audience would know something Vault Boy didn't. It was Dom's first and only same-sex scene. He had performance anxiety. Fresca took him backstage. 10 minutes later, he came out cheerful and ready for action. He slapped Andy on the and said, "Let's do this, dude." People assume she gave him her happy pills, but Dom never touches drugs. No, not even steroids. I know. We work out together. I was curious. They said it was private. Here's what he told me at her wake. She said, "I never worked as a fluffer. Mind if I try?" Like I'd say no. When it was hard, she got that little grin and asked if I liked it. I said yes. She asked if I thought she did. I said no. I mean, why would she? But she said, "Wrong. Preparing my actors for a scene is what I do best. Whatever it takes, I love doing it because the results speak for themselves. So go out there and have fun with Andy, not because you enjoy banging dudes, but because you enjoy being the best. And at the Pervies, you'll be grinning ear to ear when you walk down the aisle for your statue." And she was right.
That was nice of her, but they should have just hired a gay porn star.
6/2077, Chapter 10, Fresca Coy. Fresca wanted to be a director long before we fell in love. She idolized Moe Lester. In the old days, she followed him around the set like a puppy between her scenes. He tolerated it because he loves attention. Maybe he thought he could get her drunk and turn her straight. He's a sexist pig, and she liked her booze and happy pills. Ladies' Night was the last straw. She couldn't understand why he made a lesbian movie with zero appeal to lesbians. He couldn't understand why she wouldn't shut the up and do her lines the way they were written. She dealt with it by staying constantly wasted. When it was over, she sobered up and pitched Double Trouble to Larry Slater. The threw her in the deep end. He gave her a big budget and cast of big names. Even I didn't think she could handle it. Nobody did, except Larry and Fresca. Everybody knows the happy ending. Fast forward 7 years, Fresca's the hottest director in town. She can make the movie she's always wanted to make. Even Larry wasn't sure about 19th Hole. He greenlighted it anyway. They knew the gross would be moderate. They were a little surprised the critics didn't like it. But they were completely blindsided by the Wynn boycott. She took it pretty hard, but she got over it. It's not why she didn't make another movie. We took some time off. She was trying to decide modest movies with great sex or great movies with modest sex. Larry wasn't going to bankroll another flop. The mainstream studios wouldn't let her show any action. I went back to work. She decided she'd rather do classic porn than castrated drama. January 77, we were going to the Pervies. I was nominated again, and Fresca wanted to reestablish connections. She flew to Vegas a couple days before me. I was shooting. When we wrapped, I flew out, checked in, picked up my key. She was in bed. I tiptoed over. I touched her. She was cold. Dead. I wanted to scream. I didn't. I punched emergency. I waited, looked around, let paramedics and police in, let them work, answered questions, watched them take her away. I couldn't stay there, and I sure as couldn't face the pervy crowd. I flew home. I couldn't go in. Everybody I knew was in Vegas. I realized they probably hadn't heard yet. I called Dom. He told me to go to his place. His girlfriend isn't in the biz. She was sympathetic. I called Larry. I slept. They announced it was an accidental overdose. Larry made sure of that. But he asked me if it was suicide. I didn't want to play the hysterical widow bawling, "No, not my sweetie, never." I wanted to punch his lights out. I told him the truth. Could it have been? Sure. Would she have done it were she to know I'd be the one to find her? Maybe. Do I believe it? No. There were 2 bottles of happy pills in the room. If she wanted to kill herself, they would have both been empty. One was full. But do I believe it was accidental? No. Would she have taken a couple extra for the awards ceremony? Probably. A dangerous dose to catch some shut-eye the night before? No. She was a long-time user. She knew her tolerance. So what do I believe? I believe somebody out there knows the truth. That's why I'm petitioning the Las Vegas PD to reopen the case. Think I'm a hysterical widow? Or a conspiracy nut? Maybe. But if you had the patience to read this book, maybe not.
Poor Bruni. She found the love of her life dead. I feel so awful for her. No one ever even found Fresca's killer. That's not right.
Yes?
So, this is where you live? Do you like it in here?
It's always nicer to be in here than out there. Life down here might get dull, but I don't get shot at.
You're old enough to be my grandma? That is so weird.
Oh yeah? As soon as they figure out who told you, someone's getting pounded into the ground.
Hey, I found it out myself on the terminal, okay? It was no one's fault. I know you enjoy your work, but it's hard on you. Why don't you retire?
Some things just have to be done, and they just have to be done right. Because if they aren't, you can't ever get back what you lose.
That makes no sense. I have to go now.
Okay, bye.
Why are you all still in those outfits?
Yes?
Hard to believe that such a small group of people have run this place since before the war.
They built to last in those days, but I have to say, it was in much worse shape before I got here.
I read that note about you trying to find out Mauser's age. I guess you have a lot in common? I think he might be interested in you.
No, he's trying to figure out why I'm not interested in him. I tell him I don't want to settle down because I love my work, which is true. If that spares his ego, I'm glad, but the simple truth is he's just not my type.
Okay, you seem way too smart to work in the members-only area. Why not just stay here in the lab?
The gene sequencer does most of the hard work, at least since I fixed it. Financing the lab is a bigger challenge, but I'm good at that too. Besides, how often does a woman my age get to bang a little cutie like you?
We did not sleep together, okay? I have to go now.
Okay, bye.
Yes?
Anyway, this is a nice place. Reminds me of home, which is odd.
That's right, you grew up in a real vault. Well, Larry was blacklisted, so he built his own. I think he stole most of his stuff from Vault Tech.
You and Lily grew up together? She looks like she could be your mom.
A word of friendly advice? Don't mention that to her. I'm the only one here that can get away with teasing her about it.
Right. So what's your aesthetic supposed to be? Goth or cheerleader? I don't get it.
It's not so bad. Everybody here pulls their own weight. And this is what I'm good at.
I have to go.
Okay, bye.
I still don't approve of what you have going on here. You're adults, so you can sleep with who you like, but you're exploiting your parents as children to attract these consumers. It's not right. You shouldn't court pedophiles, even if you're tricking them.
How were the 3Ps coming along?
I've seen the lab.
And what did you think?
Look, I guess De Leon syndrome is real. It sounds like a convenient excuse, but it seems real. I still don't approve of the aesthetic of this, but I'll give you that much credit.
No apology necessary. I should have told you about it at the start of our partnership.
Fuck yeah. For what it's worth, I do feel better about being included in a business that is putting all its profits towards finding a medical cure. And I want to do the same. Just send everything to the lab, every cap. Since apparently every sex worker here knows about this except for me.
I am speechless. Well, nearly so. The victims of De Leon syndrome will not soon forget your generosity.
Did you really plan to repopulate the world with porn stars? Seriously?
My industry made short work of those who lacked self-confidence or shrewd business sense. Those who enjoyed long-term success were attractive and sexually prolific naturally, but also resilient, adaptable, and often very intelligent. In short, survivors. Can you think of a better group to repopulate a devastated country?
No, I guess not. I'm genuinely sorry it didn't work out.
At any rate, the best efforts of many failed to protect us from the madness of a few. Well, that debate is 200 years past relevance. Shall we get back to business?
My partnership here continues on one condition, and it's that those girls don't ever work another day in their lives. They can have all of my profits. They don't sleep with another client. They can do whatever they want in their free time, but we're not selling child porn. Got it? Nod your head if you understand me. Do not say anything. I'm glad we have an understanding, Larry. So what happened to your lawyer, Stoney?
She was shot. In the head, in her office, in front of her staff. Summary judgment for treason under the Emergency Powers Act.
Oh, shit. That's pre-war America for you. At least you were right there to see the fuckers burn.
I'll not deny I wanted revenge, but it gave me no pleasure to see the innocent perish along with the guilty. I'm only grateful she didn't see everything we cared about reduced to ashes.
Well, yeah, more innocents than not, sadly. I need to get going.
You do the same.
You knew about this, Malibu?
How's it going?
Look, I've got some medics for the girls.
Great. How much do you have?
Here's all I have. Just take it.
Thanks, that'll help a lot. Here, this should cover your expenses.
Don't give me that. Just put it into the lab. I have work to do.
That's the spirit. Bye.
This was so stressful. I'll try to help them as best I can. Fuck you, Larry. Hey everyone. It's a long story. I'll tell you about it on the way. Let's get going.